level playing field. That's what we're here for. It's not that we're all against everything that America has to offer, and we want to change everything that America has to offer. We want it to be fair.
What system we have is so far from true capitalism, it's amazing. It's not true capitalism at all. It's socialism for the banks.
What Occupy Wall Street movement is all about. It's about people getting together, talking about the grievances, and unifying to work together to come to the resolve.
Equal opportunities is what we're looking for and what we're trying to achieve. And I hope that it happens because of this. We'll see. We'll see.
On September 17th, 2011, people arrived at Zuccotti Park to bring attention to the worst economic crisis the world has seen since the Great Depression. They decided to peacefully occupy the park and create a physical presence so that the world would hear what many already knew, that private money in politics has undermined democracy and transferred income from 99% of Americans to multinational corporations and the wealthy. This is the story of how the 99% sparked Occupy Wall Street and became a global movement.
People hear and the people see it.
It's about fairness. It's about a country that allows access, not one that a few are in a position to continue to exploit the middle class and the shrinking middle class.
Initially, I came down here. I was inspired by the protesters to come down. When I went to that rally at Wall Street, I had no intention whatsoever of being arrested.
If we have a proper government that is fair, that is insisting on responsibility by the rich and the powerful, that is investing in the poor and the working class, making sure that everybody has a chance for education, we're going to have a far fairer and more equal society.
The first week you were here in Liberty Plaza, I was here walking, talking, talk to everybody.
I didn't feel as strongly about becoming an activist yet. It's almost like you're aware and you're like, man, that's messed up. But what can I do about it? I was in that point in time that like, what can I seriously do about it? Like, there's nothing I can do. I felt powerless.
And people feel helpless, but those who are inspired to change it are rising up.
Hold on.
I came the first day. I really didn't understand the movement in the sense of community until I actually lived here for a month.
I had a backpack with 2 days worth of clothes, a toothbrush, my cell phone, that's it. When I arrived, everybody came and welcomed me in, and so if you needed a sleeping bag, you went to Comfort. If you needed medical attention, you went to the medic tent. If you were hungry, you went to the kitchen. Sanitation walks around and cleans every inch of this park, so it took my breath away when I first got here.
I knew my neighbors. I spoke to my neighbors, and we all connected, and we felt like family, and we wanted to take care of one another, and we wanted to look out for one another. We wanted to share information.
We're all people. We all should be able to relate to each other and empathize with each other and respect each other.
I learned that we may not all be rich. We don't have thousands and thousands of dollars, but everyone here is rich because everyone here treats others how they want to be treated.
It's a gift of giving that is the driving force of Occupy. It's the nucleus of its spirit. Its spirit is about love and sharing.
This is the sanest acre on the planet.
And they're bringing dialogue about important subject matter to the forefront, stuff that has been swept under the rug and has been hidden.
99% versus the 1%. The inequality in America was never something that people talked about. It was the most on-target kind of demonstration protest I've ever witnessed.
Democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like!
What Occupy Wall Street is saying when they say we are the 99%, and when they're pointing to the 1%, it's not envy. It's not saying, well, they're rich, that's bad. It's saying that people of wealth in this country have not taken on the responsibilities that they need to, especially the powerful corporate interests, especially Wall Street.
I would say corporations are in control of our democratic process.
I've been visiting here several times a week because I want to show the young people that there are older people who agree with them and who are really depending on them.
The movement is a rebirth of America's sense of community and sense of, okay, this is where we could come talk. Tell me what's wrong, what's going on in your life.
Why I came is the first video I saw was of 3 innocent women being corralled with an orange net by police, standing there peacefully, and then were maced. I'm not anti-police, I'm anti-police brutality. I had to come here to not only protest the corruption of our government, but also to protect the people from the police. Because, I mean, I wear cameras all the time, and that's your best defense against police, because A, it's peaceful, and B, you see it how it is.
Please, get away from me. I have done nothing wrong.
I just wanted to make it public that brutality is happening in America.
I have done nothing wrong. I have done nothing wrong.
The Occupy Wall Street movement is, without question, channeling feelings that run through American society. This is not just a small group of young people who are out in the park. This is reflecting feelings of unhappiness, anxiety, anger that permeate American society, and for good reason.
The disparity of income and wealth in the United States is the widest it has been since the Great Depression. A large middle class, foundation of a stable democracy, has been shrinking at a rapid rate.
People are so greedy. You know, they're so greedy. And you know, it doesn't have to be that all of the 1% is greedy. It has to be that the people who are fighting for every penny, who have the most power and who are the most influential, are moving the meter, and people are quiet. It's the silence that's deafening of all those people who want a more fair system. And the way the money is being taken away from the poor, out of their hands and put into the hands of the rich, it is unbelievable.
We got tax cuts for the rich, a dismantling of government for the working class and the poor, a tattering of the social safety net.
400 people in this country have more money than 150 million. It's very hurtful to hear these kind of things.
Super wealth at the top, and a tremendous amount of pain for a large part of American society, especially those suffering in the worst poverty at the bottom.
Our financial system is kind of loopy. You got people that are making billions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you got people that don't even get a hot meal a day. And it's unjust.
I saw families that were homeless that were not part of Occupy, that joined Occupy.
Now in America, nearly 1 out of 2 Americans is in a low-income setting now. It's extraordinary for a country that prides itself on being the middle-class society.
Now, what kind of system would allow that disparity?
Who can afford fruit? Who can afford fresh vegetables?
That higher line, twice the poverty level, is what we call the low-income boundary. Roughly 40,000 or so for a family of 4, then you're considered in a low income. You're struggling. Maybe you can meet the basic needs, but with a lot of struggle and a lot of insecurity.
Common sense tells you that there's something wrong with the system that allows that.
It means a tremendous amount of insecurity in this country.
Wealth is not trickling down. Poverty is gushing up.
The problem is, who can afford the good food? I know I can't.
Roughly 1 in 6 Americans right now, which is roughly 50 million out of our 310 million population, eat with the help of food stamps in America. It's stunning. how Americans now are so squeezed, so vulnerable.
I don't have fruit in the house.
Over the last 4 years, 30 major corporations paid no taxes, even though their combined U.S. profit was over $200 billion.
To revisit why we have that budget deficit, because the wealth has gone to the top, but so have the tax breaks, so have the loopholes, so has the privilege of companies to park their money in Bermuda or in the Cayman Islands, even with the knowing acceptance of the IRS.
Like, my family is from this tiny island, like Anguilla. It's like 3 miles by 7 miles. And this is where so many of these corporations like set up fake offices so they could keep their money offshore and not be taxed for it. Like, I've seen it. Like, my aunt worked in one of those offices.
Some of our biggest companies use transfer pricing and other mechanisms to book their profits in tax havens. And the IRS says, no problem, that's fine, we agree to that.
It's just obvious that this system is totally upside down.
I think the tax system is unrealistic and reasonable, and it's obviously paid for by those the haves versus the have-nots. The fact that
the money that the rich and the companies ought to be paying right now, but don't pay because of the loopholes and the tax cuts and these vast wealth accumulation, this gives us hundreds of billions of dollars more, not only to do the things we need to do to invest in our future, but to close the budget deficit.
If the wealthy paid the same tax as the middle class, the United States represents 5% of the world's population, but is responsible for 20% of the world's pollution. It's estimated that 50,000 Americans and more than 2 million people around the world die each year from pollution-related diseases.
The corporations are responsible. These corporations that like say, oh no, let's just like not like participate in like the Kyoto Agreement. Like, let's just not address anything having to do with the EPA, are quite literally ruining the world for a huge number of its population and future generations.
We all need to wake up. We all need to know what's going on. We need to educate ourselves. We need to stand together, and we need to fight this.
To me, the sun is money to me. And these guys are going to soon realize that without trees, without sun, without water, you can't eat money.
The U.S. As a society has been underinvesting in our future for decades. Households were borrowing rather than saving. The government was slashing taxes for the rich and cutting public investments for all of society, cutting back on even maintaining our infrastructure, our roads, our dams, our waterways, our levees, cutting back on investing in renewable energy, for example, which is vital for our security in the future and for environmental security.
We are making ourselves extinct right now, and the realities of that are not pervasive because we don't want to talk about it.
Education is the foundation of democracy and economic growth.
My grandson.
I don't understand why we're putting monetary prohibitions on education. Education should be something we want for everyone. We want an educated society. We all benefit from an educated population.
Of course, like we're told in school, you know, go get your education, go to college, so that you can get that dream job that you want.
We had a wonderful city college, and that was free.
I did have to take out loans to go to college, and I was also on very serious financial aid going to college. Totally $34,000, all my loans, which really isn't even that much in the scheme of how much debt people do graduate from college with, but definitely is something that I'm not at all able to pay off right now.
I would like to see.
So there's 2 million jobs in America that we can't even fill because our education system is so broken.
We should have been investing more in education, one of perhaps the most vital investment that any society needs to make for the 21st century knowledge economy.
I think it would lead toward a better world.
I've always been a little entrepreneur. When I was 8, I sold firewood. When I was 9, I sold lemonade. 10, I sold Power Rangers. I've always been trying to get up in the world, but it never seems to work. So I figured if I got a degree, I would have enough knowledge and tools to further myself in the business world.
My main reason for joining the Marine Corps was because I wanted to go to school, and I couldn't hold a job and afford school.
And it's still really expensive. And I'm in debt up to my chin.
So I had my plan, you know, military, school, dream job, live in peace, retired, you know.
A huge question is war.
I thought Marines were cool in general. They were the warriors of America that brought peace to Americans. And, you know, I've always felt like being a patriot was something cool to do. And I saw what was going on there. We surrounded every large resource of oil. I began to question our government. Trust me, a lot of veterans are awake to what's going on. That's why we have the Veterans Against the War. They know what's going on, you know? They know that it's for corporations to make money, for the control of the natural resources of these countries.
We're the world's police. Look how hated we are in other countries.
We go to war because there's profit in it.
What is going on all over the world in our military bases, the young people are not fooled.
If you look at where our military is at, we surrounded every large resource of oil.
First, we have to cut wasteful spending. That starts with the military. We have wasteful wars that are costing us trillions of dollars. We still have military bases defending against a Soviet invasion in Europe 20 years after the Soviet Union ended. So we could save at least a couple percentage points of national income by cuts of the military budget.
We could have free college education. We could have so much money if we just took a look at the military alone.
I went to City College. We spend way more money on healthcare than any other country, by far. We're not one of the top 30 even countries regarding infant mortality. We are really on the bottom of the list of the free world.
It has made, in certain areas, a third world country out of us.
If we went to the public option on healthcare, we could save 1 percentage point of national income. That's another $150 billion. And said, we're not just turning everything over to the private health insurers and this incredibly expensive and wasteful system.
We support health care for all in the United States. We support health care for all in the United States. As a human right. As a human right. We need to be insured from birth until death. We need to be insured from birth until death. Like every other Western country. Like every other Western
The public option would be a not-for-profit federal insurance plan entirely funded by the people who wanted to be insured. This would allow greater access to health care because the price of insurance would be lower. More than 40,000 Americans die each year because they lack access to health care.
We all came. I mean, the internet right now is the most dangerous threat to any kind of system that there is, because you could hear the voices quite clearly of someone across the world and say, oh wow, yeah, I agree. You know, like totally, I'm on the same page as you. That's what makes a 99% like global uprising.
Throughout 2011, from Tunis to Cairo to Tel Aviv to Santiago to Zuccotti Park to Oakland to hundreds of cities around the United States to Moscow at the end of the year, the call for true democratic representation, true governance by the people, not by corrupt interests, not by the autocrats. This has been a worldwide call, and it's a worldwide struggle.
Half of them saying they want to turn this into a social communist party and have the country run like that.
People fascists. Smoking, sex-addicted morons. You compare them
They weren't being fooled by all the slanderous things that were said about them.
There's a lot of filthy, dirty hippies hanging around who have no clue what's going on whatsoever in the world.
People they're hooked on media that's owned by the 1%, and they're telling their side of the story. They're telling you what they want you to hear. They're telling you that we're a nuisance down here at Zuccotti Park. They're telling you that we piss all over the place and that we're just a bunch of hippies and that we don't know what we're talking about.
They're actually calling for the violent overthrow of the United States government.
Corporate media is trying to marginalize us, but when you see all these quote regular people, it's making their job really difficult. And that's one reason I came down in uniform. It's like, try to marginalize me as a weirdo.
The Justice Department has been essentially sitting on its hands. We did need a special prosecutor from the beginning of this crisis to take it out of politics and give the wherewithal to have a massive understanding and investigation of what really happened. Because it wasn't just Goldman Sachs. We know that Citigroup was involved in this. We know JP Morgan. We know that most of the marquee companies of Wall Street knew in the later stages, at least, of this bubble that things had turned seriously south, and they stepped over the line. That's what the SEC has said.
And that led to the great instability and the financial crisis that exists today.
We need the Justice Department to come in and take a real look at who broke the law, who didn't break the law, where there's responsibility, where were the boards of these companies, where is some accountability to get this right.
Glass-Steagall, the banks, you couldn't have an investment bank and your regular checks and savings banks operating in the same business.
Serious and necessary regulation, including reenacting the Glass-Steagall Act, which forced the separation of the commercial banking from the casino.
You wonder, how long will we accept this wildness, this what do you call it, living it up, at the expense of the 99%?
Over the last 30 years, corporations' share of the nation's tax revenue have declined about 30%, while spending on lobbyists and political campaigns have increased more than 200%. In 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court declared that money is free speech and that corporations can contribute unlimited amounts. This decision is known as Citizens United.
I wasn't so interested in campaign financing until Citizens United.
Yeah, the corporations now can contribute unlimited amounts, and they were very successful, by the way, in contributing before this. Can you imagine how successful they're going to be to contribute unlimited amounts?
Corporations all of a sudden are human beings, individuals, and can spend without limitation to support their candidates and their programs. This is very scary.
Since the privatizing of prisons began in 1980, prison population has increased more than 500%, and incarcerated drug offenders have increased more than 1,200%.
Most of my friends went to jail at some point over drugs. Just as these people who are locked up, the prison industrial complex pays the bills of the politicians, so much so that they either turn their head or they frame it that we're soft on crime if we don't lock these people up. You have to get the money out of politics. The prison industrial complex, the gun lobby will have less power. There's no reason to run around with automatic weapons in the hood. The only way that's going to happen is if we change the system.
Over the last decade, more than 100,000 Americans have been killed by gun violence. The gun lobby has spent 10 times more money in campaign contributions than gun safety groups.
We need to get money out of politics. Money has absolutely overrun Washington. It's through campaign contributions, it's through massive billions of dollars of spending on lobbying, it's through the revolving door, it's through insider trading by politicians in Washington who get insider information and trade on their personal account. Shocking how straightforward the corruption is as well.
No one should pay a politician to make a choice. It should be illegal. Legal bribery is ridiculous.
And what's scary is that international corporations aren't being held accountable to anyone. They're able to buy politicians. They're able to buy freedom. I mean, they're able to buy anything they want. And what we're here and what we're trying to do is have accountability.
Social effort to get this done.
I definitely believe we need multiple parties. This two-party system it doesn't work.
This is what democracy looks like. Tell me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like.
See new faces out in the streets with us, chanting, "We are the 99%. Whose streets are streets." This is what democracy looks like. The Foley Square, it was the first time that we realized that everyone is in this movement together. No matter what your walk of life, where you came from, where you live, join us in the streets and try to get your voice heard, because that's all we're trying to do.
What I'm looking for with this movement is getting mainstream America, because they're suffering the same things. They're losing their homes, they're losing their pensions, they're losing their jobs, they are all feeling the same way we're feeling here. But they can't quite relate because the media is displaying the people here as not one of them. So I'm hoping to get more and more people to realize, hey, I'm like that person, I'm like that person, because they share the same hardships. And once we get those people involved, that is going to be when the movement really takes off.
This movement is only going to get bigger. And obviously they're scared, because you got police beating people up, you got the media gagging the movement, the facts aren't being shown. So they're scared. So what I have to say to the higher ups, instead of using force and violence and thievery to win, why don't you try to change why we're protesting?
I support so wholeheartedly the occupation movement, because the young people were able immediately to grasp what was important.
You can't kill an idea. That's what the Occupy is. It's an idea with a lot of supporters, global supporters.
You reach people and you engage people, and then they come back and they're on your side.
Because only communities could fix America. It's not going to be politicians. They're bought off by the lobbyists that work for the corporations, that work for the banks. And we need to get the voice of the majority to rule this land again.
We are unstoppable. Another world is possible.
I want to be part of a system that's just and fair and promotes more equality and opportunity. That's what Occupy is about.
If we have a proper government that is fair, that is insisting on responsibility by the rich and the powerful, that is investing in the poor and the working class, making sure that everybody has a chance for education, we're going to have a far fairer and more equal society, but not a handout society, a society where everybody has the skills, the wherewithal to move forward on their own because they've been helped, they've been backed by education, they've been backed by infrastructure, they've been backed by science and technology so that we can all be productive and we can all share once again in what really is the greatness of America, a middle-class society in which everybody can be prosperous, responsible, fair to their neighbors, and accountable and sustainable for the future.
I think there's a very strong interpersonal element to Occupy Wall Street, which is just kind of asking for compassion and empathy and understanding of your fellow human being, whether they're across the table or like across the world.
Right now, we love things and we use people. What we need to learn is to use things and love people. And when we understand that, we're onto something, let me tell you.
I think the Occupy Wall Street movement is just a breath of life.
We're told that once a Marine, always a Marine. And so I take a look at what's going on, and to me, I feel like right now, I'm really serving my country at this moment.
There are things that are changing the system because Occupy exists. So Occupy is an ongoing process. You know, people raising consciousness, awareness, and promoting a more just society. That's not going to go away. It just keeps growing.
Every generation has to make that struggle to achieve true democracy. Clearly, this generation is ready to make that effort, and I believe it will succeed.
We need more people to care.